All right, greetings, my friends. So, what I got for you today is a video about my influences. I came up with the idea for this last night. I'm lucky that I didn't pull another all-nighter last night because I was just going down to bed and I kept taking notes about different things that were my influences. And I'm looking at my bullet points on my phone right now. So some of these influences were like, say if it's an actor, like a huge influence, like I watched a ton of their movies and I was into everything they do. Or bands, it could have been like bands that I consider my favorite bands. But some of these is like an artist where there's just one song that I heard from them and it marked kind of like a transition in my tastes in my life. So before starting this video, I put them in order, roughly, of when these particular people or things or music or whatever came into my life. So we're going to kind of try to do it in order. Starting from when I was a lad. Jim Carrey is the first one. So I took a trip to Mexico with my parents, and my sister was a baby. I was maybe 7 years old. Me and my sister are 6 years apart. She was a young infant, so I might have still been 6 years old, and she might have not even been 1 year old yet. My dad had a friend who had a condo in Mexico. So at this condo, there was a number of VHS tapes. Let's see if I can remember all of them. There was Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, Ghost. First time I ever saw Ghost was there. That was very impactful. E.T., Clueless. That's a good one. I like watching that every few years or so. And then the other one that I remember, the last one I remember, is Liar Liar by Jim Carrey. So I saw Liar Liar for the first time when I was 7 years old, 7 years old in Mexico with my parents. And I was absolutely floored by it. Like, I just could not get enough of it. And for the rest of that vacation, I watched it every single day. I watched it every single day. I loved the kind of like physical comedy, like, the pen is blue, the goddamn pen is blue, real blue, and just like, you know, being an idiot, basically. And then from there, like, I remember seeing Ace Ventura: Pet Detective when I was very young. We had the Mask on VHS. And a movie today that I'm kind of surprised that I go back to so often, that has kind of joined in the ranks of movies that I watch a lot, is Bruce Almighty. And, you know, as like some sort of a man of God or a spiritual guy who came to Christ eventually and like was in the church for a while in various different churches, and then kind of like went back out of the church and kind of went back to being spiritual but still following Christ. There was a time when I was like, oh, you know, this movie's horrible, this movie's wretched, this is basically like Jim Carrey mocking God in some way. But I read some articles from Catholic sources that talk about how Bruce Almighty, you know, it has a couple of like lowbrow moments, namely like when he uses his powers to make his wife's boobs bigger and to please her in bed and stuff. But other than that, the movie actually has kind of a wholesome message that some Catholics have signed off on. And so yeah, I find myself rewatching that like every year or so. I just find it kind of wholesome. You know, his life isn't going well, and then he blames it on God, and then he gets God's powers, and then he realizes that like it's not so easy to just make everything okay. But anyway, I don't want to sit here and try to like hash out why I like that movie. The Grinch, classic. I was actually really into. I wasn't really into drama when I was in elementary school, but I was really good at it. And I was thinking about it last night. I totally should have continued on with that because I had a knack for that. Like in all the school plays, when I was in 4th and 5th grade, I was always in lead roles. I was always put in lead roles. I was the lion in the Wizard of Oz. I was Harriet Tubman's dad in the Underground Railroad. Yeah, I played a black guy. And I was the Grinch in the Grinch. The way we did the Grinch play was like everybody just kind of like read. They recited little sections, but basically the only person actually acting was the Grinch. And then I would say the Grinch's lines, and I would kind of like do goofy stuff while people were reading. So, and the way I acted during that was kind of inspired by Jim Carrey's Grinch. So that's probably enough to say about Jim Carrey. But physical comedy, like, you know, just doing dorky shit, that really appealed to me when I was a child. And I definitely think that stuck with me throughout my life and kind of rubbed off in other aspects of who I am. So this next one's a pretty small one, but I was thinking about cartoons. You know, I could just say like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon in general was probably a big influence on me, but I was thinking, what's a kind of TV show that, what's like a specific cartoon that I think left some sort of a mark on me? I have Dexter's Laboratory. And I think Seth MacFarlane of Family Guy was a writer for that show. I was just recently watching something about Seth MacFarlane, and I think they mentioned that, and I was kind of surprised. But if you think about it, Dexter being the boy genius and into science and stuff, that's kind of like Stewie. That's kind of like how Stewie, you know, has the secret lab and shit. So that would kind of make sense. But just the whole theme of having like a secret laboratory, that was something that really stuck with me. I had this fantasy when we moved into this log house that I lived in from like 2nd grade all the way through high school. The back door that went into the garage, as soon as you exit, there's a wall with a spigot on it to connect a hose. And, you know, under that spigot is like a bunch of rocks. And I imagined, like, if you move all the rocks, there would be a sewer grate. And you could lift up the sewer grate and then climb down, and there was like a secret room that had like a couch and a television. It's all decked out like a man cave or something. I always kind of imagined having secret rooms, and then I kind of combined that with another point on the list. We'll get to that when we get there. It's actually the next one. So really, I can just go ahead and transition to the next one. Dragon Ball Z. But the way I kind of combined that, the concept, you know, like having the secret lab or the hyperbaric time chamber from Dragon Ball Z. I used to imagine that I could go into a secret room and time would stop. So, you know, I could like go in there and do my homework, or on a night that I couldn't sleep before school, I'd go in there and like play video games and do whatever I want. Moving on, Dragon Ball Z. So there have been times on my channel, on my stream, where I just never shut up about Dragon Ball Z. It's been a while since I've spoken on it. And, you know, I could maybe put Pokemon too. But looking back on Pokemon, I did recently watch through, like, the original series, you know, up through the Elite Four and whatever, leading up to the Mewtwo movie. But that's not something I revisit frequently. And you talk about it, it's like, you know, it's basically just like forcing animals to fight and keeping them confined in tiny little balls. It's kind of like disturbing. It's kind of like disturbing and inhumane. But Dragon Ball Z, man, I gotta tell you, when I rewatch it from time to time, my favorite parts is like when the family's hanging out and having like big picnics, or when Goku's pigging out and like eating a bunch of ramen and rice. Just all the characters hanging out together, palling around. I don't think Dragon Ball Super aged too well for me, but all my favorite scenes in Dragon Ball Super is like that kind of stuff. There's an episode where they play baseball, which is wholesome and goofy. I love how like Whis and Beerus, they love the food on Earth and they just pig out. Just I feel like the Dragon Ball Z characters are like my family. There's a lot of great themes in the show. And I was thinking about this last night, how Vegeta could maybe be considered like the Jungian shadow. Because on one hand, every kid who watched Dragon Ball Z thought Goku was so cool. But then when Vegeta shows up, you know, Vegeta and Nappa's huge and jacked, he looks like a pro wrestler, and then Vegeta is this tiny little dude. And after Nappa gets beat up by Goku, the way that like Vegeta offers his hand and then throws him up in the sky and blows him in the smithereens, dude, every 8-year-old boy thought that was the shit. Every 8-year-old boy thought that was the shit. And they already thought Goku was the shit, but then they're just kind of like, they have this little inner conflict where it's like, man, I love Goku, but Vegeta is so damn cool. Everybody likes Vegeta and everybody likes Goku. So it's kind of like, you know, Goku could be the self, but then your shadow is like Vegeta. I don't know. I don't know if like the show was built around that, but it's something that I thought of as I'm starting to get into Jungian archetypes, which is maybe a video that I can make at a later date. And, you know, I already knew about Jungian archetypes and Carl Jung in general. I was already fascinated with him like a long time ago, way back in like 2016, 2017. But I'm getting back into that kind of stuff now. But what else is there to say about Dragon Ball Z? You know, just working out, strong values. Goku could be kind of seen like a Christ figure. Lots of little weird occult stuff in there. Like, they describe the feeling of becoming a Super Saiyan as like a tingle going up the spine. Could be seen as the rising Kundalini. You know, going up Snake Way could kind of be like the Kundalini. And they meditate. It's very Eastern, but if you just kind of observe Goku's nature, forgiving, gentle, kind, like a child, he's like the perfect Christ figure. So, moving on. This is an interesting one. This is 3-in-1. I remember this time so vividly. This was around the same time. So Jim Carrey, since about 6 or 7 years old, probably before I ever even saw Dexter's Laboratory. Maybe not, though. I was watching cartoons like pretty much right out the gate. So Dexter's Lab around the same time. Dragon Ball Z, that came a little bit later, but not really. That was still 2nd, 3rd grade. So this is also 2nd, 3rd grade. Kid Rock, Eminem, and Britney Spears. That was all the rage. I guess that would have been like 1998, 1999. Man, and that song, ball with the ball, da bang, diggy, 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 set the boogie, set up, jump the boogie. My name is Kid. When that song comes on the radio in the car, that song bumps, bro. That song bumps really hard. The guitar sounds like kind of metal. And then for, what is it? I'm a cowboy, baby. I don't know if it's that one. One of their songs, they just straight up use like Metallica. Dun, they use Kid Rock uses a Metallica song for the instrumental. I thought that was kind of funny, but like one of my friends lived in a trailer park. I actually made a video talking about like gate programs and stuff, and I said it was kind of strange that I was friends with him because he could have been considered like maybe the dumbest kid in school, and like I might have been like the smartest kid in school, and the school kind of seemed to like kind of push us together to be friends in a strange way because we were in this same weird program at school. But so he lived in a trailer park, and his parents listened to Kid Rock and Britney Spears and Eminem, but so did he, and then as an extension, kind of so did I. And the theme, minus Britney Spears, was just total edginess. Like, oh, this song, a midget says that he has a 10-foot dick. I remember one time listening all the way through Devil Without a Cause with another one of my friends and just being kind of disturbed. Like, I probably never listened to that album all the way through ever since, but I just remember way back being in second and third grade, like, just, I was disturbed by that album because there was just sex and drugs and vulgarity, and I just remember thinking, like, gosh, I don't think I should be listening to this. Some of the most vulgar stuff I ever heard, by far, at such a young age, definitely came from listening to that album. And then Eminem, that was huge. We'd go to his house after school, walk to his house, and then just kind of like listen to Eminem albums and giggle at all the swear words. And then what's there to say about Britney Spears? It was just around. Like, a lot of my young memories being like 8, 9 years old, goofing around in this freaking trailer park. I gotta tell you, man, like, hanging out in the trailer park was interesting. One time, this older kid was like, hey, man, we're hunting rats. You guys want to help? Yeah, sure. And then we got, like, circled by all of these kids and this guy. It was like something out of, like, a Stephen King movie. And it's like, where's the rats? Oh, we forgot to tell you. You guys are the rats. And nothing happened. They didn't, like, jump us or anything. I started freaking crying, and then that was it. They're just like, oh, we were just kidding, man. But, yeah, like, all the kids in the trailer park, like, hung out in this, like, big mob. And it was kind of interesting. I have some kind of wholesome memories of, like, hanging out in this trailer park. But that's pretty much it. I really don't know what to say about Britney Spears other than that, like, it was a part of that same time. So Eminem definitely had a big influence on me. Kid Rock was just kind of there, and Britney Spears was just kind of there, and that just really brings me back to being in second and third grade. So moving on, Tom Green. Oh my gosh. And it's weird because it seems like I didn't watch Freddy Got Fingered until I was in 8th grade. Before I ever saw Freddy Got Fingered, I saw Tom Green's Subway Monkey Hour and then the Tom Green Show. And that kind of humor, I think it's like similar to Jim Carrey, but it was so raw. It was so completely raw. You could argue that he was kind of like the originator of like an IRL kind of a thing. And I just thought it was so funny, you know, like breaking into a museum and hanging his own painting on the wall, turning his parents' car into the Slutmobile. There's one where he was like dressed up like a banana and he was banging his head on traffic. And I'll bet a lot of that stuff was staged. But, man, that just... The same way Jim Carrey just immediately clicked with me, Tom Green immediately clicked with me. Probably wasn't a good role model. I remember one time I said it to a teacher in elementary school, like, Jim Carrey is my role model. And she was like, that's not good at all. They were probably not a great influence on me, especially Tom Green. Me and this chick that I was getting friend zoned by the summer between 8th grade and my freshman year, we went to Walmart. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, we were at the Walmart in Kodiak, and I picked up the PA phone, and I was like, Fish Man! And it like echoed through the entire PA of Walmart. And shortly after I did that, a worker walked up and like had her hands on her side. I was like, I was looking for my mom earlier. She's like, yeah, you need to go. So that definitely inspired me to be like a prankster hoodlum. And man, me and my friends were doing so much stuff like that in middle school, just walking around late at night making weird noises. And man, one time a car drove by me and a few of my friends, and he was like, if I see you guys again, I'm going to run you over. And then we like yelled a bunch of shit at him. And so he goes around the corner, and we hear him like skidding out to turn around really fast. And we're all 8th graders. And we're like, oh shit. And we go and hide behind this oil tank. And then he drives by real slow, looking out the window. He stopped for a second and got out of the car. And we're so fucking lucky that he checked the opposite side of the road. He got out of his car and went to like the opposite side to look for us, and then got back in and left. And then we stayed there, and he drove by again. And then we like ran to Walmart. So who knows what that guy was going to do, man. He was going to like beat the shit out of us, or I don't know. There's 3 of us. Maybe we would have been able to do something, but there might have been 2 of them. It might have been like 2 adult men versus like 3 wimpy little like edgy 8th graders. So yeah, you know, all of these bullet points kind of like inspire a lot of random memories and stories. But Tom Green was a really innovative dude, man. And then, you know, that group that I was just talking about that we had to hide from those guys, those are the guys who showed me Freddy Got Fingered. And oh my gosh, that has got to be the most quotable movie ever. Wake the baby! Wake the baby! He's a molester! He's a child molester! I'm the backwards man, I can run backwards as fast as you can. It's a treasure! We can live like kings! Dude, I was obsessed with that movie. I was absolutely obsessed with that movie. And yeah, Tom Green was an innovative dude. Like, he maybe had like the first internet podcast ever. So I kind of enjoy checking up on him. It's been a while. It's about time for me to check up on Tom Green and see what the hell he's been doing. Some people kind of think he's a hack. He's not necessarily like writing comedy funny. He just has the balls to do edgy shit that makes him look like an idiot. And sometimes that's all it takes. Like a little bit of wit and creativity and a lot of balls and just raw energy. So him and Jim Carrey are similar in that matter. By the way, I forgot to mention, Truman Show is like probably one of my top 5 favorite movies. I've seen it way too many times at this point, but I've already talked about that movie in the past. So Tom Green. Next up, this actually might have happened a little bit before Tom Green, but close enough to the same time. Blink-182, Sum 41, and Rufio. A little bit different. Not quite as well known as Blink-182 and Sum 41. But so the first 2 albums that I ever got was Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park. My Mormon neighbor chick who had a crush on me gave me that. And then, it's crazy, dude. Like, you didn't even have to be close friends with somebody when you're a little kid for them to buy you a gift. Like, a friend of one of my best friends who was just kind of an acquaintance to me, he was in 5th grade, I was in 4th grade. He got me All Killer No Filler by Sum 41. And then my friend across the street, Wesley, some of y'all have heard about, he was really into Blink-182. And then another one of my friends was also really into Blink-182. We got into these goofy little arguments about, I was like, Sum 41's the best. They're like, no, Blink-182's the best. And we try to like argue like which was better. It's pretty crazy. You know, maybe that's some of my early debating skills, because I think most people would probably agree that Blink-182 is the better band. But, yeah, that's kind of funny. That's like one of my first debates was like just debating my balls off trying to like convince people that Sum 41 was better than Blink-182. I'll tell you what, man, when you take like the wrong position and you like defend it to the end, that's not a bad way to do it. It's not a bad way to grow the skills. Eventually, because I got into drums, I started playing drums in 6th grade, but I was already listening to Sum 41 and Linkin Park in like 4th grade. So once I started playing drums, I started to kind of give Blink-182 the nod, and then I got really into Blink-182. And but I want to talk a little bit about all of these bands. The thing about Sum 41 is, if you think about it, stolen to the party like my name was El Nino. I'm hanging out, drinking in the back from El Camino. They're kind of like rap sometimes. And then they have that other song. It's like, well, I'm a disaster, looking for a master. Put on the tape, you got your ghetto blaster. Well, I'm Busy D from way downtown. They're kind of rap sometimes. And then they're kind of metal sometimes. Pain for pleasure. He's the hunter, you're the game. Pain for pleasure. Satan is his name. Like, sometimes they do goofy metal songs. Sometimes they do kind of badass metal songs. Like on Chuck, they had one called The Bitter End. But they're kind of metal sometimes. They're kind of rap, some hip hop sometimes. And then they're punk. They're like a pop punk band. It's interesting how, if you think about it, a lot of pop punk is kind of more than it seems. And I'll get into that when I talk about Rufio. But if you look at like New Found Glory, 90% of people would say that New Found Glory is pop punk. But their guitar player, Chad Gilbert, who got with Hayley Williams of Paramore, Chatty Gilbert was the vocalist in Shai Hulud, which is like one of the sickest 90s hardcore metalcore bands like ever. And I'd say it's safe to say that New Found Glory was kind of like his invention and his brainchild to like take hardcore and kind of water it down and kind of blend in with the pop punk. And I actually didn't really get in. I was aware of New Found Glory, but I didn't really get into them really until kind of recently, like 5-6 years ago. At this point, I'd probably say New Found Glory is like my favorite. But yeah, New Found Glory was kind of more like hardcore. Sum 41 was like experimental, like metal sometimes and rap sometimes. So that's about Sum 41. Blink-182, man, what is there even to say about Blink-182? I would say, and what I wanted to say about Sum 41 before I go to that is that I ended up rapping. I ended up being a death metal drummer. So it's funny how like this band that was my first favorite band ever, it kind of had these little subliminal influences on me. You know, maybe being some of my earliest exposure to hip-hop, earliest exposure to metal. But then with Blink-182, man, first of all, they have so much music. Like the old school pre-Travis Barker Blink-182 with Scott Raynor and drums. I got really into that near like the end of 8th grade. And that just feels way different than Travis Barker Blink-182. That's actually like legit skate punk. A lot of people won't want to accept it because they're like, no, Blink-182 is popular. But if you really just listen to old school Blink-182 for what it is, it sounds like really awesome, fun skate punk. That's a lot different. And at this point, I would have to say my favorite Blink-182 album, like of all their music, is probably Cheshire Cat. So I would say I prefer the old school Blink overall. But Travis Barker is sick. Ranking the Travis Barker albums, I probably would go back to Enema of the State the most. That really reminds me of my early, hanging out with my friends in like 6th grade. Basically like 5th grade through middle school. I remember one time we put Adam's song on repeat and listened to it through like 10 times. But I think something that kind of rubbed off on me writing-wise is Tom DeLonge and how he makes goofy songs. And then sometimes he'll do something goofy in a serious song. Like, he's not afraid to just go out on a whim in a song that's like a serious song. And actually their latest record, the first one, the first part, because it has 2 albums, One More Time, it was the song Turpentine. Wash yourself in kerosene, da-da-da-da, turpentine. He says some goofy shit in that song. Like, it's a song that sounds badass. It's like a real song. But then he kind of just throws some jokes in there, too. Or like on Boxcar Racer, my first punk song, that's like a badass serious song. It's like, I got brownies from your mother, gave me syphilis, I got no dick. And it's like, that's a badass song, but it's also kind of like goofy and messing around at the same time. One time, way back when I was lucid hip hop, I had a really small, not even like a following, but a couple people were giving me some props for the rap that I was making back in like 2014 and 2015 on SoundCloud. Somebody wrote an article about one of my songs that I have no trace of. That song is not saved anywhere. I did a horrible job saving all of my music. But he wrote an article about a song that I wrote. I can't remember what it was called. But what he said was, Lucid builds up this very complex, archaic, like genius level sounding flow with like an advanced vocabulary, and then he just throws it all against the wall when he says this. And I don't remember what I did, but I was being like trying to do the whole like mad scientist genius rap with the advanced vocabulary, and then I said something really goofy and kind of like broke the third wall and threw it against the wall. And the guy who wrote the article talked about it like it was cool. I think I kind of got that from Tom DeLonge and Blink-182. And, you know, Mark Hoppus kind of did the same thing. But, yeah, so I think Tom DeLonge, Blink-182 definitely had kind of an influence on my writing style. So for Blink-182, probably Boxcar Racer would be my favorite of, like, anything they did. Which was kind of what started the beef, which led to Tom leaving the band, because Tom was filling in on bass with Newfound Glory at the time. And Boxcar Racer was basically Blink-182 without Mark. And I think they had the bass player from the Transplants, which was a band that Travis Barker was also in. But yeah, I absolutely love Boxcar Racer, that album. Still listen to that a lot to this day. The drum tone, oh my gosh, Travis Barker's drum tone was always sick, but I feel like maybe his best drum tone ever was on that album. I was obsessed with like Orange County drums and percussion. So many of the bands from that time used that. Wow, we're already 33 minutes deep. That's crazy. I'm going to have to try to hurry up and get through the rest of this list. But, you know, Travis Barker got me into like Orange County drums and percussion. To this day, I think those are some of the best sounding drums ever. The old school, before they sold out to like Overseas or Guitar Center or whatever. The old school Blink-182 with the skate punk. And then, you know, so minus the old school Blink-182 being my favorite, then minus Boxcar Racer probably being my favorite, I would say the self-titled album. I go back to the self-titled album a lot. That's great. They did a song with Robert Plant, and now I'm really into The Cure. And Robert Smith. Not Robert Smith from The Cure. That's a great track. How does that one go? Da 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 do 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 do. With all of this I know now, nothing ever changes me at all again. I wait for this, another night with her, but I'm always wanting you. Use me, holy, come on and use me. That's a great song. They took a lot of risks on that album, and I remember when it came out, I skipped some of the tracks on it, but it aged really well for me. And, yeah, Tom DeLonge, if you listen to him talking about his influences, he had a really badass taste in music. A lot of the stuff that I got into later was his influences. Like, he said The Cure was one of his favorite bands. He loved the band Jawbox, which is like a really sick 90s, kind of like a post-hardcore kind of a band. But yeah, I could really go on and on and on about Blink-182, man. Shit, Travis Barker. What's there even to say about him, man? Like, he's just kept getting better over the years. He's cool. He's got a clothing line. It's a great dynamic where Tom and Mark are making like fart jokes and dick jokes, and then Travis is just kind of like cool, and they're a really cool band. And what's funny is like the further you go back, like before Travis, the better the vocals were live, but Tom would like screw up on guitar a bunch. And then the further you go into the future, the more their vocals suck live. there was a sweet spot, like when they played one of their first live shows with Travis on MTV, like with whatever his name is, Carson Daly, MTV, Spring Break. That must have been like 2001, 2001. That was like the sweet spot where the vocals were pretty good live and like they didn't screw up on guitar a bunch live. But they've always kind of had a reputation for not being that great live. So I could go on and on and on about Blink-182. That's that. Rufio. Maybe some of y'all don't even know about Rufio. Man, to this day, really love Rufio. I think they're highly underrated. The crazy thing about Rufio is that they're like crazy fast. I feel like the fastest skank beats. So a skank beat is like the Slayer beat, like, but then the D beat is like the punk beat. The D beat's ultimately more technical than the skank beat. The skank beat is just like a polka, really fast, but not quite as fast as a blast beat. So if you think about like Angel of Death, running to the kingdom of the dead, infamous, Ouija, Angel of Death. So that's like Slayer, but then Rufio is like, hold me by the arms, tell me what to believe. If I could walk 2 times on the land. They're like faster than Slayer, bro. It's like, save the world one by one, make them believe, reform if they must, question the thought. They're like sick, dude. And that going back to like how pop punk was deceivingly like a lot, drawing from a lot of genres. Newfound Glory was kind of like watered down, easy core, hardcore. Because I swear, dude, Shai Hulud, if you listen to like Shai Hulud's 2 albums, that's like the sickest melodic hardcore ever. And then Sum 41 kind of had some hip hop, some metal, and then some punk. Rufio, I thought of this last night when I'm lucky that I fell asleep. They're kind of like crossover thrash. They're like crossover pop punk thrash. Because their freaking drummer is so fast, bro. And when I think about how I ended up getting into death metal, and I swear, dude, like I had a reputation in the New England metal scene. Like there was a lot of bands that were trying to get me to join because motherfuckers could not play blast beats as fast as me, dude. Some of my origins for why I think I ended up getting pretty fast on the drums is like Rufio. And also old school Blink-182. Obviously Travis Barker was the better drummer, but like my girlfriend takes me out when I'm too drunk to drive, and she doesn't get all jealous when I hang out with the guys. The ride cymbal for that is like there's like a fast ride cymbal for those kind of beats. But nobody plays D beats. The D beat is it's a little bit more complex than just the straight up skank beat. But nobody plays D beats faster than Rufio on their first 2 albums. And then their third album was The Comfort of Home. That didn't do so well for the ratings, but I love that album. That was them trying to kind of like change their sound up a little bit, slow it down, make it more like kind of rock oriented. We'll leave today with the windows down and ride away like we own this town and living on our own. These nights are fading away in the distance, an open road in the darkness with a street sign that says home. Absolutely love Rufio, man. I mean, shit, just for those 3 bands right there, I'll probably do this at some point this summer. By the way, I kick off every summer by listening to All Killer, No Filler from Sum 41. Because like I said, that was maybe the first album that I ever got. I don't remember if I got that or Linkin Park Hybrid Theory first. That was the first album that I ever got. And I have memories of warm summers in Kodiak, which were rare. You never know what you're going to get there. Warm, sunny summers on the lawn, blasting All Killer, No Filler, man. So that's how I kick off every summer. But if I just like marathoned the albums from those bands, even if it was just my favorite albums from them, like the old school Blink-182, probably Enema of the State, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, self-titled from Blink-182, Boxcar Racer, Rufio's first 3 albums. I mean, that would be great, man. I'm going to make a point to do that at some point this summer. But yeah, Rufio was fast as shit. That's low-key how I got some of my death metal chops, or what translated to death metal chops later. Old school Blink-182 translated to some death metal chops, probably. And then Sum 41 was just kind of like, if you think about it, it's like, I was into metal and rap and pop punk emo, and that's kind of what Sum 41 was. So yeah, there's all kinds of bands. You know, these bands would not really be considered in my top favorite at this point, but definitely those bands are some of the most influential by far. Like, they're the ones that made the cut for the most influential. So we're 42 minutes now. I think we can probably get through the rest of this pretty quick, guys. Late night television. So this reminds me of a story. My freshman year of high school, oh man, you know what? There was a guy, Filipino dude. We called him the Emo King. I played in a band with him called Winter's Apathy. We did emo covers. We did So Cut My Wrists and Black My Eyes. We did a Boxcar Racer song. We did a Census Fail. Sunlight shining through my window lets me know that I am still alive. That was horrible, by the way. We did Census Fail. We did Finch. Like a bad star, I'm falling faster down to her. I love emo, dude. Like, I've been rocking my 13-hour long early 2000s emo playlist, guys. And the way that early 2000s style goes for me is like, the sweet spot is like between 2001 and pretty much 2004. There's probably a couple of albums that are maybe 2005, maybe 2006. But when people are like, oh yeah, dude, like All Time Low, or Cute Is What We Aim For, or even like Fall Out Boy, it's like, nah, dude. Most of the stuff on my playlist was between 2004 and maybe like 2001. But oh my gosh, now I'm starting to talk about emo. I don't even really remember. Oh yeah, because I'm talking about late night television. And then the Emo King. Well, I had a 0 hour from my first period, which guidance counselors told me was a terrible idea. It just shows you how much of a slacker I was. But that year, my freshman year, jazz band was a plus hour, meaning it took place like immediately after school let out. So I had a class when school let out, so I had an open first period. And I would either just not go to school until after that period, or if I did go to school, I would go sit in the library. Sometimes I would like nap on the desks, or I would go on the computers, which I'm going to get to for the next topic. Oh, it's crazy how these transition into each other. But the Emo King, dude, he was a senior when I was a freshman in high school. Probably like the peak of me being the shit was in 8th grade, bro. Because when we played this show called The Sock Full of Steel, I was in 8th grade, and he was a junior in high school, and other people in the band were freshmen in high school, a year older than me. And there was kind of like these whispers about me in the high school. When I was in 8th grade, it's like, oh, I heard that they're drummers in 8th grade. I was tiny as shit, dude. I was like 4'11". I had dyed, shitty, like bleached, ruined hair, which maybe contributed to me fucking going bald early, which, oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about that right now. But, yeah, there was like rumors about me in the high school when I was in 8th grade. It's like, oh, dude, I hear they have this 8th grade drummer, and he's like really sick. And so that was really cool, man. But he would be in the library. We had so many goofy inside jokes, dude. He'd be like, psst, yo, Jake, fucking Seosin, bro. Seosin, dude, they perch. There's a song by Seosin called They Perch on Their Stilts, Pointing Down daring you to break custom or something. You're like, dude, let's fucking play 7 Years, dude. Acoustic. Don't be gee. I can't even say that, but that's what he said. And he died, man. He was the first friend I ever had who died. He got chased off of a balcony in the Philippines, like basically the summer that before I went off to college. But so what does that have to do with late night television? Well, I would stay up every night and watch Jay Leno, Conan O'Brien, and Carson Daly. Jay Leno I'd kind of have on in the background, and I'd be like noodling around on my computer, doing whatever. Like, I spent a lot of time on MySpace message boards, like arguing with drummers and shit. But then when Conan came on, I give it my full attention. I loved Conan O'Brien. And you know, they both had pretty good musical guests sometimes. Carson Daly's show was kind of cringe, but he would have emo bands. He would have like Killswitch Engage or Brand New or whoever. So I'd make a point to stay up, usually just hoping that there would be a sick band on his show. So that's kind of like right in between, is like, did that have a huge influence on me? That just really brings me back to my freshman year of high school. And it was good that I had the open first period, because I was staying up till like 2 a.m. every night my freshman year of high school. So the library computers, one of the things that I would do is hang out on the computers, go on YouTube with headphones and listen to bands and look for live concerts and stuff. And I'd be looking for emo bands because that's what I listened to. But then I stumbled across somehow a live Cradle of Filth video, which I've memorized Danny Filth's opening to. Another track from a new album. This is entitled Cruelty. I can't do the high one, dude. Arcades! And that video of that live performance, it blew me away, man. The light show, the dark green lights, the different kind of vocals that Danny Filth did. Their drummer, Nick Barker, with his huge drum set. He was sick, crazy fast, melodic. They had like women in cages wearing leather, and I was like, whoa, dude, this is fucking crazy. And I'd heard Cradle of Filth on the Metal digital music channel before. And bro, it's so funny thinking back, because eventually I became a death metal drummer. But I was like legit scared of metal, dude. I thought that Trivium was scary. And now I look back and it's like, dude, that's like Baby's first metalcore. But Cradle of Filth was legit scary. The first Cradle of Filth song I ever heard was like, I think it was called like Gilded Cunt or Glided Cunt. And I was in like 8th grade hearing that on the music channel. I'm like, this is really scary. I don't want to listen to this. And I still kind of felt that way when I saw that live performance of Cruelty Brought the Orchids. But it was mesmerizing. And I kept coming back to it. I kind of became like obsessed with that video. And that's what kind of started my little like curiosity about metal. I was still an emo kid. I still liked the poppy, high-pitched vocals. But every now and then I was like, man, like, let's listen to that album. Let's listen to that album, Cruelty and the Beast. And so I started listening to that album, and I heard blast beats, and then I found a video of Derek Roddy of Hate Eternal in the studio playing Behold Judas. And I was like, I don't really like this, but that drumming is fucking insane. And I started trying to play blast beats, and the rest is history, dude. And it all started with that video. A likeness hung in the black gallery. Come on, dude, the way he switches between all the vocals is nuts. So I'm not like a huge Cradle of Filth fan. To this day, that's the only album I would really like return to, is Cruelty and the Beast, which is a concept album about Elizabeth Bathory, who would like bathe in the blood of virgins or whatever. But that definitely is what got me into metal. Like, undoubtedly so. So from there, Immortal Technique. The bling bling era was cute, but it's about to be done. I leave you full eclipse like the moon blocking the sun. My metaphors are dirty like herpes, but harder to catch. Like an escape tunnel in prison. I started from scratch and all these parasites want a percent of my ass cap. Trying to control perspective like an acid flashback. But here's a portable for every single record exec. Get your fucking hands out my pocket, Edward like Malcolm X. But this ain't a movie, I ain't a fan or a groupie. I ain't the type of cat you can afford to miss if you shoot me. Curse the heavens and laugh when the sky electrocutes me. Stuck in your thoughts, darkening dreams. No one's as good as me. They just got better marketing schemes. So when you go platinum, no, it's got nothing to do with luck. It just means that a million people are stupid as fuck. Let's go, dude. That's the Industrial Revolution by Immortal Technique, which I didn't even know what that was back then, but I do now. I didn't know what a lot of stuff he was rapping about was back then, and I do now. Like, he was rapping about MK Ultra. There was one lyric that like I memorized wrong, like George Bush flying planes in the Twin Towers. There was a live stream I did a few years ago where I was like looking for that and laughing about it, because that's just like so over the top. I ended up thinking like he never actually said that, but that sounds like something he would say. That's like Immortal Technique's version of woke in a nutshell. Like George Bush flying planes to the Twin Towers. He raps about some real shit, dude. And I'm already, have taken heat for being pretty woke over here, so I don't need to like discuss the stuff that he raps about. A lot of people know him for that song Dance with the Devil. Dude, that song is so edgy. One time I was on a school bus in 7th grade, and this really tall chick, who I've known like my whole life since then, she was like, listen to this song. It's so fucked up. He ends up like raping his own mom, and it's just so edgy, dude. Like, so much of why little kids listen to rap is because they wanted to like giggle at the edginess or like be disturbed by how edgy it was. But undoubtedly, Immortal Technique is what got me into rap. I remember the exact moment. It was that song that I rapped just now, Industrial Revolution. Because before that, I was kind of like annoyed. Like, when I was getting into Dragon Force and Stradivarius and Manowar and Iced Earth and starting to flirt around with like getting into death metal, I discover like Dying Fetus and Nile, and I'd show it to people and they're like, dude, do you actually listen to this? This is fucked up. I'm like, no, man, but listen to how crazy it is. I'm like, yeah, turn that off, bro. And then I'd go home and like listen to it again by myself and be like, fuck, man, like, I think I dig this shit. But to everybody else, the people that I was in like jazz band class with, we all listened to power metal. That's what I listened to, like when I was too much of a bitch to like embrace that I listened to death metal. Which next year, I came out of the freaking death metal closet, dude. But so I was getting into like Symphony X and Stradivarius and power metal and metal at the same time that everybody else was getting into like Lil Wayne and Lil Jon. And it was pissing me off. And I was like, dude, you guys are fucking lame. Like, I'm never going to listen to this shit. But I was in a car with my friend my junior year and his mom, and he puts on the Industrial Revolution. I was like, whoa. Rap can be like this? I thought rap was just kind of like trying to sound as retarded as you possibly fucking can. Like, I didn't realize that, like, smart people can rap. Which, Immortal Technique, he's a great MC. I don't want to talk down on him. A lot of people kind of view him as a meme. Like, he's not... I haven't listened to Immortal Technique in a very, very, very long time. And I do listen to rap from time to time. I was hitting the bag a couple of weeks ago to Tupac, All Eyes on Me. Classic album. Love it every time I throw it on. If I just had to spitball some of my favorite rap albums to this day, Tupac, All Eyes on Me, Kanye, Graduation, just kind of Drake in general. I actually like Drake. But Immortal Technique was the guy that got me into listening to rap and that made me decide that I wanted to rap. So this is the last one, you guys. This is an hour-long video. We're at the 55-minute mark. Let's get this done in the last 5 minutes. Jawbreaker and Jets to Brazil. So Jawbreaker, people consider like an early, like a 90s pop punk band, or some people say they're kind of like an emo band. There's all these kind of genre elitists that make all this stuff very confusing. But the thing about Jawbreaker, who has the singer of Jawbreaker went on to form Jets to Brazil, the lyrics are very clever and intellectual. I'm trying to like think of one of their songs. If you could hear the dreams I've had, my dear, they would give you nightmares for a week. But you're not here, and I could never sleep. Let me know so I can be afraid. What's another one, man? It's like, the world is an oyster, stuck in a shell. You love the taste of it, can't take the smell. I can't remember the melody of this one, but I remember the lyrics. Some older guy on a motorbike picks her up after school. Something about smoking cigarettes way before it was cool. I don't know. I am jet black, stone cold, jet black to the center. Funny like a funeral. I need you to bury me. Dude, just listen to the album Dear You all the way through. I had that t-shirt in high school. I was such a fucking cool indie kid, dude. Honestly, looking back, it's like the metal that I was listening to was all about to become like super popular. It's funny to think about that because like death metal is not what you would think about as popular, but I ended up listening to like the most popular like tech death metal bands. And before that, I listened to some like really kind of like hip, lesser known stuff, at least for my generation. But yeah, I had the Dear You t-shirt with the donkey on it. A lot of it's weird. I haven't even really listened to the albums before that much. I like the production. See, if you watch the Jawbreaker documentary, it's really fascinating. I had no idea about this. They were like a really unknown underground kind of band in the 90s. But Kurt Cobain of Nirvana discovered them. And he was a fan. And he invited them to tour. So Jawbreaker went on tour with Nirvana, and as a result, they blew up in popularity, and they got offered a deal with a major. And all of their fans were like, you better not take that major label deal, bro. That's fucking selling out, dude. And it really pissed me off watching this documentary, because they said they would never take the deal, but they did. And as a result, they made Dear You, which is like one of my favorite albums of all time. And the fans would like go to the show and face away from the stage. They would do all this shit to like practically like gang stalk Jawbreaker for betraying them, for signing to a major. And it's crazy, man. Like, I really hate that gatekeeper mentality. I have a wide taste in those kind of like more underground 90s bands, but there's some bands with mainstream success that have a similar sound. Like, you know, Helmet was really popular on majors. Deftones is like so unbelievably famous that sometimes I even though I love the way Deftones sounds, I have to kind of like not listen to them as much because there's so many like basic bitches who listen to it. But I don't know. I hate that mentality, man. But so Jets to Brazil is maybe even better. I mean, the band, the music itself, like the instrumentally, is maybe a little bit more interesting and technical than Jawbreaker. Everything's like pretty simple in Jets to Brazil, but lyrically, it's just beautiful. Like the lyricism of Jawbreaker in Jets to Brazil, I truly believe inspired me as a writer. Making rap music primarily, because it's just Like, yeah, sometimes it's about girls, sometimes it's about like emotional emo stuff, but it's just very clever. A lot of the interviews in the Jawbreaker documentary are people like going on about how intimidating they were. It's like, everybody else was just talking about partying and shit, and these guys were like intellectual punk. And I didn't really think of it that way when I was listening to it, but I just liked it. It just really resonated with me. Orange Rhyming Dictionary from Jesse Brazil. Man, holding that album up against Dear You from Jawbreaker, that is a very tough battle right there. I think like Dear You is a little bit more fun and varied, but man, there is some good lyricism on Orange Rhyming Dictionary. So I'm not going to try to sing any of that because I can't even really remember it off the top of my head right now. So there you go, guys. There's an hour plus of some of my influences that kind of led me to become the man that you see before you today. Jim Carrey, Dexter's Laboratory, Dragon Ball Z, Kid Rock, Eminem, Britney Spears, Tom Green, Blink-182, Sum 41, Rufio, late night television, Cradle of Filth, Immortal Technique, Jawbreaker, and Jesse Brazil. Kind of like my spurgy, physical humor, musically, rapping, playing fast on drums, being an emo kid. As far as edginess, I definitely would say just being exposed to Kid Rock and Eminem at such a young age when that stuff was extremely viral and all over the place. And Immortal Technique was pretty edgy too. Oh, you know what? I forgot to write down South Park. I was going to put South Park last night. I didn't want to open my phone anymore because I was about to have to pull an all-nighter because I was thinking about this. But I'll tell you the story about South Park and we'll leave it at that. It was such a rush watching that behind my parents' back because before we moved into the log house, we lived in this trailer with an addition on it on some private property. And I didn't even have a door in my bedroom. I didn't have a door, but I had a TV in my room. And I remember when South Park would be coming on, I was constantly watching the door to make sure my parents didn't walk by. I'd have to change the channel. First episode I ever saw was where Cartman's the Tooth Fairy. And then they get wrapped up with the mob. Go back to sleep or I'll kick you in the nuts. So, South Park, more edginess. Everybody knows South Park, dude. There's not really that much to say about it. But that was probably the first thing that I ever hid from my parents. And I definitely got an adrenaline rush. And I definitely would have to kind of miss segments of the episode. That even went on when we moved into the other house. I would secretly watch South Park behind my parents' back. Eventually I showed them the episode with Scientology with Tom Cruise, and they thought that was pretty funny. But, South Park's in the mix too. I was watching that ever since probably 3rd grade. That's what I got for you guys. That's all a little bit, throw it in the pot. Sugar, spice, and everything nice. That's how Reformed Stoic was made. God bless you, my friends, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace out.